Hope you had a wonderful weekend, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Jeremy Cordo. Peter Clayton is behind the camera. You are there, and everyone is welcome to the Court of Public Opinion, where we talk about stuff, as we will in a moment, after we wish you a happy birthday and look at some of the things for which we remember the day. July the 10th, Howard Hughes. I saw a wonderful, I guess it was a biopic. More than a documentary, it was a biopic, bit of dramatisation, but it was being reported almost as history about his life and the things he did. He was quite an amazing man, an adventurer, cared little for his life. I mean, I'm surprised he lived as long as he did. But 1938, Howard Hughes flies around the world in 91 hours. He was the guy who came up with the biggest aeroplane that ever was, the Spruce Goose. And there was a huge bet that he had with somebody that it would never get off the ground. And all he had to do, it was a flying boat, all he had to do was to get it about 10 feet off the ground, and he'd won the bet. Never went anywhere, but he did get it in the air. So he won the bet. And he made movies, seduced starlets, stuff of Hollywood, I suppose. But didn't die a very happy man, I'm afraid. That was in 1938. 2018, the original sketch of Winnie the Pooh's 100 Acre Wood by E.H. Shepard sells for £430,000 in London. Record price for a book illustration. Yeah. 2018. 1989, Mel Blanc, the American voice actor, comedian, best known for his Looney Tunes and Merry Melodies cartoons, Bugs Bunny, Elmer Fudd, Porky Pig. He dies at 81. I think I made mention of him the other day. It was his birthday. Yeah. Gilligan's Island. Wasn't he on Gilligan's Island? Pete?
I'm not sure.
Anyway, he had a wonderful career. Talented man. 1985, Coca-Cola announces that it will resume selling old Formula Coke. See, the new Formula Coke didn't go down very well, or very often. And I think that's another case of the 12-year-old in the marketing department. You got the best-selling beverage in the world, and somebody comes and says, let's do it differently. Oh, dear, oh dear. 1985. 1866, the indelible pencil was patented by Edward P. Clark of Northampton in Massachusetts. The indelible pencil. Don't think I've ever seen one of those. 1866.
The 1866 Winchester.
The 1866 Winchester. Have you got one of those?
Yes.
Yes. Now, the Winchesters were wonderful, wonderful looking guns. I mean, they're just beautiful works of art, really. Lady Godiva rides naked on horseback through Coventry, according to legend, on this day in 1040, with her tresses covering the important bits. And she did it, it says here, to force her husband, the Earl of Marcia, to lower taxes. 1840. I don't kind of get the connect between the horse ride and the taxes, but, you know, must have seemed like a good idea at the time. And for the locals, I think it probably was, well, history. History. Omar Sharif. Egyptian actor Dr. Zhivago, Lawrence of Arabia, dies at 83. 2015 was the year. A great chess player, too. Brilliant chess player. The final 4 boys and their coach rescued from that cave in Thailand. trapped there for 18 days. Good movie, and I say it was a good movie, the documentary that they made. The doctor was a South Australian, and an anaesthetist, terrible word, I think, from memory. They made him Australian of the Year. Haven't heard anything about him since, but my son, Christopher, was involved in the making of that movie about the cave rescue. Anyway, 2018 was the day they got the final boys out. The city of Dublin is founded on the banks of the River Liffey, Liffey, 988. Dublin is an old city. The Battle of Britain begins as Nazi forces attack shipping convoys in the English Channel. The year was 1940. The first concrete paved street in Iowa, 1892. Taylor Swift. What a talent. Named the world's highest paid entertainer by Forbes magazine, earning $185 million in 2018. I don't know that, Pete, you're a singer, you'd have some appreciation of Taylor Swift. You like her or you don't?
I like the country stuff.
The country stuff, but then they obviously persuaded her to go to a bigger, more popular market. The first parking meters installed in England, 625 were installed on this day in 1958. Turning the page, one more. Oh, Playboy and also Penthouse published nude pictures of Madonna on this day in 1985. Don't know about Madonna either. Anyway, it's all interesting. Grist for the mill. Speaking of grist, a couple of new apps that might interest you. Now, if you've been looking at the dashboard of your new or relatively new model car, and you've wondered about all those symbols. Now, I don't have many or any really modern cars. Oh, I suppose I do. I suppose a little bit. But, you know, I'm not into modern cars. But like you, I've seen those symbols. I do marvel at what they mean, but I don't know what I'm supposed to do. Panic? Is it a warning? Abandon ship? Call the RAA or the NRMA or whatever? Well, there's an app that's coming out. So when you put your phone on charge one night, why it's always at night, I don't know. I think it's got to be something to do with your phone being on the charger, but they update it. They update the hardware. No, they update the software. Shows you how much I know about it. Anyway, that doesn't matter. What happens is when you've got this installed in your phone, you just point the camera on your smartphone at the dashboard, and it'll tell you exactly what all those symbols mean. Now, I think that's a great idea. And the other thing that's interesting is another app which is coming out along about the same time, I think, with the updating of your smartphone. You don't have to do anything. It'll let you know when you need to update the software. It's doing away with your motor car handbook, the manual. It'll give you all the information that you need, because in the lengthy hardcover document that we get with the car, which never comes to hand all that easily, we can forget all about that. It will be a thing of the past, and you just go to your smartphone. What a wonderful world. Now, Louise has taken me to task. Yes. Now, if I get this is about right. The story about the Scandinavian car manufacturers leading the way with a push for universal electric cars. Now, I'm accused of being, well, not being a hypocrite, but not pointing out the hypocrisy of the great wealth being enjoyed by these Scandinavian countries as a result of North Sea oil. You're totally right, my dear. Oil. You're totally right. If you take the carbon self-righteous Norway, for example, the sovereign wealth fund generated by North Sea oil makes every citizen in that country wealthy. $200,000 for every man, woman and child, and this wealth will only compound into the future indefinitely. I think I agree with you. They should speak well of that black stuff. They mightn't like it, or they might pretend not to like it, but my God, they have benefited from it, as this government has, of course, through the sale of the abundant and high-quality coal that we have, that will be burnt by other people to their advantage and not ours. A recent case, a tragic case, where a young woman, a woman footballer, never quite understood why women want to play football, but anyway, playing AFL, she tragically killed herself. It's been determined that she was someone suffering from brain damage. Brain damage caused by playing the game. This has happened many times in America with gridiron, and I understand the trauma, I understand the torture, I understand the anguish of the families, people left behind. But listen, look, I don't know why the media doesn't sort of take such an angle, but let me, on this occasion. We have free will. No one has to go out and play gridiron, football, or sport generally. No one has to go out and play AFL or NFL or take up boxing or horse riding or mountain climbing. We make a choice and take responsibility. What I said to Brittany Higgins, I say to everyone, take responsibility for your behaviour and your choices. Is that so unreasonable, treasonable to say that sort of thing? If you want to do it, go and do it. But accept the risk, and importantly, or sometimes tragically, accept the consequences. You could say it in 1,000 different ways, but you know, you make your bed, we all do. We make our bed and we lie in it. Listening to Kate Blanchett. Pete, is that the way you say it? Is it Blanchett or Blanchett?
Blanchett.
Blanchett. Listening to Kate Blanchett on the ABC, the 7:30 report, talking about her new movie, which involves Indigenous matters, asked inevitably by Sarah Ferguson about The Voice. Away she went. Whoa, off she went. The Aboriginal people have never had a voice in the Australian Parliament. Now, Sarah Ferguson is a very experienced, talented, good journalist. She must have had a moment or something. Because that statement was either ignorant or stupid, or both. There are 11 Indigenous members in the Parliament of Australia, who make up 5% of the Parliament, when Aboriginals or Indigenous people represent only 3% of the population. So, Kate, I'm sorry, Aboriginal people are represented. In fact, you could argue they are overrepresented in the Parliament of Australia, which has given them a voice for a great length of time. It's called democracy. I don't know what it is that you or the ABC are trying to promote, but it's not democracy, and I don't believe for 1 minute the Australian people are going to buy this sort of black armband, as John Howard used to call it, black armband view of history. The Australian people are enormously generous. And yes, we're all tribal, and particularly Aboriginal people, if you want to be totally honest about it. I was talking about apps a minute ago. I hate to sort of ramble around the place, but there was something that I wanted to mention to you. It's called Plant Parent. I don't know how you get it, but if you have an app store that you do go to, or the app store, do try and get it on your phone. I haven't got it on mine yet because I only heard about it on the weekend. It's called Plant Parent. You have a sick or a dying plant, maybe just a disappointing specimen, underperforming specimen. I have a few of those. You choose the Plant Parent app, you hold the camera in your smartphone focused on the patient. Seconds later it will be scanned and a diagnosis will be made and a remedy offered. Now that is a fantastic idea. I don't know where all these apps are going to lead us, or where they'll all end, but I think there are aspects of this modern world that I totally approve of. There are others that confound me. This is one that confounds me a bit. We've talked about the NDIS before. Well, it's official. Last week it was announced, I can't say loudly, but it certainly popped up in front of me. The NDIS is costing us, the taxpayer, $95 million a day. Can you believe that? $95 million a day. I didn't. I went to my smartphone because it's got a calculator in there, and I multiplied 95 million by 365, and yes, it came out at 35 billion, which is the deal. That's what it's costing us. Unbelievable. That's now costing more than Medicare. Thank you, Julia Gillard. And it's 10 years old. Maybe that was the context in which that particular statistic was mentioned, I'm not sure. But the NDIS is 10 years old now. They anticipated about 200,000 people would be eligible. Anticipated? They should have known. They anticipated. If they didn't know, how else could they possibly decide if it was affordable? Clearly it isn't. Well, the 200,000 has now grown to 650,000. At the same time, the disability support pension has also grown significantly. That's gone up from about 125,000, 150,000 when it first started, to 690,000. This is madness. Now, when questioned on all of this by a Senate committee, the head of the NDIS blames the legislation. It's all too vague, he said. You can drive a truck through the eligibility guidelines. Really? Well, who wrote that legislation? Would I be wide of the mark to suggest that why it was written that way could be that they meant it to be written that way? Or are you telling us that they're just incompetent fools? Then you put on top of that all the suppliers overcharging, seeing the NDIS as just a huge cash cow, a money spinner. Look, it was a great idea. So too the disability support pension. But no guide rails, with reckless or no oversight. We need somebody with a magnifying glass or half a brain to go over some of this stuff in Canberra. This thing will send the country bankrupt. Now, one of the truest cliches in the world is the road to hell is paved with good intentions. Well, with the NDIS and the disability support pension, I tell you, I think we are well and truly on the road to hell. There's no other country in the world, by the way, that has anything like the NDIS. Now that should tell us something. Oh yes, no, New Zealand. Yes. The only other country with anything like the NDIS, and they have the same problems. Out of control, totally unaffordable, and quite frankly, I wouldn't be looking to New Zealand for enlightenment on anything. And by the way, Bill Shorten, the minister in charge of the NDIS, reminded us on the weekend, after revelations, that a woman, an NDIS provider, had personally defrauded the system of $7 million. He described the organisation as being in the hands of organised crime. Well, who put it in the hands of organised crime? That didn't happen overnight. Someone within the NDIS must be responsible, must be brought to book. Someone must have known. And if he or she didn't, it was truly incompetent. But ultimately, I'm afraid, Bill, Minister Bill Shorten, you are the minister. You have to take ministerial responsibility, but somehow I don't think you will. Who's going to force you? I don't think the media even talk about it, do they? The opposition hasn't got its act together to be effective, so you're pretty home and hosed, aren't you, Bill? Anyway, thank you so much for viewing the Court of Public Opinion. We'll be back for another rant tomorrow. Believe in yourself. I'm Jeremy Cordo. Peter Clayton and I will see you then. Bye for now.